Two different conversations made me realize small life changes I hadn't even thought about. In college, I probably drink more water in a week than I did in entire academic years of high school. I didn't consider that until the topic of headaches came up, and I realized I hadn't had the semi-regular headaches I used to get as a teenager in a long time. A different conversation made me realize how much nonfiction I read compared to high school. Should I expect more of these as time goes on? Story 1. Turns out grown-up me really loves cooking, and with that, I really like shopping for new ingredients to cook with. Teenage me would certainly be raising an eyebrow. Story 2. Teenage me would have never predicted that one day I would not be socially awkward and would be able to casually talk to strangers and have a good time doing so. Story 3. I don't think my teenage self at 15 would ever believe that I would eventually be studying day after day for medical school. When I was 15, I was almost about to go to a trade school, but during that year I fell in love with science. Story 4. Teenage me. If I had a girlfriend, I would have sex with her at literally every opportunity. Adult me. My sweatpants are so comfortable right now. There is literally nothing you can offer me that would make me take them off. Story 5. That people can really try to screw you over as an adult if they had the power and they felt like it. When I was 18, my father got really drunk, got in my face, and started physically challenging me. Up until that point, things were going really well. Then after that, I became really depressed since I wasn't able to afford to go to college and had to go to community college instead. I finally got out of my house for a year at 20 and tried to ignore what happened in the past, which didn't work. When I moved back home, I realized I had to start standing up to my verbally abusive parents and get myself to respect me. After this change, I noticed they started treating me with more respect, as did my coworkers. Don't give manipulators, frauds, and abusers an inch. They will take everything you have if they can. Story 6. I surrendered my entire waking hours to work. The worst mistake I ever made. I'm not in my 20s anymore, but my teenage self always thought I would be a musician or some kind of extreme sports enthusiast. Maybe even a photographer or a YouTuber. But no, I decided to just work all day, every day to save for a house. Now I'm in my 30s, unemployed and reaping the fruits of my labor. My body already showing signs of wear and pain. Also regretting that these past 10 years disappeared and all my hard work isn't paying off. No increased chance of getting hired in that field, no increased pay for all the knowledge I have, no house bought. Just me, tired, depressed, burnt out, and empty-handed. If it wasn't for the in-laws, I would be homeless and without food too. Story 7. That I would be such a failure in university. I always had the highest grades. I mostly didn't need to study for my classes, but I did anyway. I had so many expectations on me. But then the year I got into university, my mental health went downhill mainly due to my narcissistic dad and toxic relationships. Now I am in my 10th year of university, and I'll be graduating next term. Teenage me would have never seen that coming because he never had troubles in academic matters. I've never thought this would receive so much support and be that relatable to so many. I'm sorry that we've all gone through similar experiences, but don't lose hope. Don't give up. Someday it will all be in the past and you'll be happy where you are. Until then, just hold on tight and know that you are loved and appreciated. You are not worthless. You did the best you could under those circumstances. Stop thinking about what you could do in the past. Start motivating yourself for the things you can do now. Story 8. Not my 20s, but when I was a teen, I had this stupid goal to make $100,000 a year before I was 30. I was a high school dropout who got caught up in drugs and parties. I worked in fast food or retail. I moved from share house to share house, had more addresses than years in my life. I didn't really understand at the time, but I was also suffering from really bad depression. When I was 22, a friend of mine gave me an entry-level job at his information technology company. I was just answering calls and resetting passwords, but I loved it. I missed my deadline by a month, but just after my 30th birthday, I landed my $100,000 a year job. I started getting treatment for my depression, and I'm working with a great personal trainer at the gym. I'm slowly putting my life back together, and I hope one day I can find a way to give a young lost person an opportunity that will change their life. Story 9. Teenage me would cry frequently because of how alone and lonely I felt. Now adult me loves nothing more than these moments for self-reflection, to collect myself. Story 10. Well, there is still much to come, but I will say that teenage me would never have thought that he had courage after all. He wouldn't have thought that he would meet other people like him, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and that sexuality can creep up on you and flip the rule book. Story 11. I'm about to be 21 in a month. Can I call myself in my 20s? I never knew that one day I would not be addicted to social media or have a Facebook account anymore. Edit. Thanks for the awards. Story 12. I struggled with weight issues from being a kid all the way up until my mid-20s. I always thought weight loss was something that happened to other people and only through eating bland, unhealthy food. It wasn't until I started educating myself on nutrition and exercise that I discovered how very little I knew on the subject and how weight loss was, in principle, a very simple concept that didn't require fad diets or CrossFit. Story 13. Getting married, having kids, becoming an alcoholic, making films, working as a writer, becoming sober, giving up weed. Teenage me would never have believed any of that would have happened. The road only makes sense when you look back. Story 14. I don't want kids. I always used to or thought that I did. I've seen the reality now, the cost, the time, the wedge driven in, and the stress put on relationships. I like travel, quiet time, weekend lions, and the freedom to do as I wish. The realization that I didn't have to follow the life script and have kids if I don't want them was a nice one. Story 15. Accepting myself and having a boyfriend and hopefully marrying him soon. When I was a teenager, I thought making a family was only possible by marrying a woman. Story 16. My little brother died. It happened 4 days before Christmas last year. I never knew how true it is when people say that losing a loved one leaves a tangible hole that feels like losing a limb. I had never fully been aware of the presence Tyler had in my life. I'm about to get some money from life insurance, but it feels meaningless. It was forced on me when he messed up and died. 15-year-old me, for instance, would think that this wasn't even real, similar to one of the dark alternate timelines in the television shows I was into then. I would agree with him that this reality can still be hard to believe. We often talked at length about what we do with a large, sudden sum of money, like winning the lottery. I will be doing some of the things Tyler wanted to do, things I might not have done otherwise, things that will probably be annoying sometimes, but I can see him laugh at that. I can laugh a bit at that too. I'll sift through whatever I have to find a better timeline. This may not be exactly the answer this post is looking for, but it's what I have right now, 25 years and counting. Story 17, 1. That life does not work out strictly according to your plans, even if you work at making it what you want it to be. Although the end product can somewhat resemble your goal if you are willing to work twice as hard as you thought you had to. That weight loss is actually a very simple concept that does not require intricate formulas and hours of breathtaking exercise. That there is nothing inherently special or divinely ordained about the lives of the popular school kids. That those same popular students were nothing but ignorant, young loudmouths begging for attention and fun. That I don't have to change who I am unless I deem it necessary. I could go on and on. Story 18. Teenage me was very anti-drugs and a real overachiever, albeit a lazy one. In my late teens and early 20s, I got very into drinking and drugs. For the last 4 to 5 years, I have been a full-blown cannabis addict with dwindling future prospects, still coasting off my teenage self's academic success. Only now, at 23, have I finally quit drugs and sought out the proper help so I can get my life back on track. In a way, I think I've gone full circle back to my teenage self. I never would have seen the last few years coming, though. Story 19. As a kid or teen, I hated working in attics, basements, and crawl spaces, since we were rural folks and my father bought a fixer-upper house. Now I have been doing pest control for over 29 years and loving it. No one comes down to the crawl space to look over your shoulder, and a crawl space has a pretty consistent, cool temperature. Story 20. That I would start smoking weed and do mushrooms. Also, that I managed to get into a university. Teenage me believed it was something that I would never manage to do. Story 21. that I would end up alone after university was done, and any roommates who had stuck around found reason to move on. That's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. I'm trying to stay open for other people to be a part of my life, and I a part of theirs, but it's difficult to hype yourself back out of the slump time and time again. Story 22. I was really nice and empathetic as a teen. I never saw myself becoming this paranoid person who hates basically everyone and cannot trust a single soul to save his life. I also have a really hard time being nice or empathetic now. I also never saw myself having appreciation for how ugly and short I am. It just makes me less likely to end up in a situation where I am being used by a woman for security or material gains. It is something I used to worry about, and I have actually starved myself multiple times over it. Not anymore. Story 23. Going to college at 28. Teenage me was well-behaved but average at best in school. College? No thanks. I'm not good enough. It's too boring. Now I'm in computer science studying for my Bachelor of Science. Story 24. If you asked me how my life would be in 10 years when I was 15, it would have been totally different than I would attempt to explain. I thought I was going to be a broke loser forever, never doing very well in school. It was not the environment for me. I went through a monumental amount of stress, pain, sleepless nights, and mental health issues. Getting screwed over, hard work took a toll on my mental health. I was broke then to be successful now and not work for somebody the rest of my life to gain independence. At 25, I have a son, the only true family I've ever met. I have the fiancé of my dreams somehow. My mental health is under control. I am a functioning, happy, healthy individual. I'm a business owner, a home and property owner, own nice vehicles and toys, and have a nice dog. I quit drinking. I am happy and motivated. Life is good, and just a few years ago, I couldn't even imagine it could or would ever be this good. Knowledge comes in time with experience. You're going to have to mess up 1,000 times to succeed once. But once you break that barrier, the sky is the limit. This is my true and personal experience. I hope somebody reads this and gets motivated to not be so nihilistic and depressed. I see a lot of that online. Have an awesome day. Story 25. Bye. Making good money doing something I mostly love. Way more luck romantically than I ever expected. Honestly thought I'd be an angry, sad, and alone deadbeat. Story 26. Was worried about not getting involved in things happening around before. Now really glad this was developed as a skill. Saves a lot of time and effort. Being able to slip through the fingers gives some choices to make while not getting stuck in some random mess. Story 27. I don't think teenage me would appreciate just how much more confident I am, and that I no longer have any nervousness or anxiety when speaking to anyone. Story 28. I'm 22. I hated reading books, especially textbooks. I even promised myself that I would never read a book again. Then I discovered trading, which is connected to personal development at its core. Now I have almost 40 books in my room, covering topics such as money, mindset, psychology, and even public speaking. Story 29. I think the love for poetry. I wrote occasionally, but it was mostly for school papers and it became a drag. I did end up writing stories a couple of times, but they were not very good. I still do not write a lot now, and no stories, but I love the poetry I do. It's a great outlet, and even if it is not very good, I have something I love to do when I feel the creative inspiration. Thankfully, I have also found much better hydration habits. Story 30. Quit my stable, full-time, salary job with benefits to join a technology startup for equity 3 years ago. For the last 8 months, I've also been staying at home with our daughter while my wife works instead of fighting mixed martial arts professionally. Life is a wild ride. Baby number 2 is due in November. Story 31. When I was in high school, I couldn't pass a class to save my life. I was 300 pounds, went to college for recording arts, and learned about work ethic because I wanted to make it in music so badly I was willing to starve. Somewhere, somehow, I took responsibility for everything I wanted to improve about my life. By 24, I was doing audio and stage work for major artists in live venues and recording studios, and got a credit on an album that charted on Billboard. At 25, I changed careers to 3D printing and significantly accelerated my career and income potential. At 27, I had lost 50 pounds, was promoted to a position in Japan with the same company. At 28, I had lost 110 pounds, could deadlift 3 reps at 300 pounds, and had more energy and health than at age 15. I developed confidence and self-esteem and stopped looking at a scale because I was proud of what I could accomplish with my body and mind. Dating became easy because I valued myself. At 29, I got promoted again and moved back to the United States and bought a house. If I could tell my teenage self something, you have to learn how to value yourself before others will value you. You have to build your own value by working harder than other people on goals that set your soul on fire. You have to cry through body image issues and get yourself to the gym and eat right, because it's actually doable and not some monumental impossible task. No one will do it for you, and your quality of life will become unparalleled, and you'll get everything you really want. Story 32. Maybe it sounds odd, but I was always 100% sure I would never be in United States territory because I hated everything about the gun laws and the non-existent general health care. Well, now I am 6 months into a long-distance relationship with the most wonderful woman I have ever met, and I will move to the United States within the next 2 years to be with her. Teenage me would have never believed that one.